Hi, welcome to January 2025's TBR. 2025. I still sometimes write 2006 on things. 2025. I mean, 1989. So I cannot believe that it doesn't feel real. It doesn't feel real that it's 2025, but it is. And here we go. I'm going to start with some goals that I have for 2025. Goal number one, I want to keep a series of commonplace books. I already purchased some notebooks and keeping it real simple, didn't get anything fancy, just notebooks like you would use at school. But I have 5 of them, and each of them is dedicated to a different kind of theme. And I want to gather information from my reading and my watching and my music listening. I want to gather information from all of my experiences and kind of categorize it in these commonplace books. This is a project, the keeping of commonplace books is a project I have been working on since probably 2015, and I struggle to perfect it for myself. It will never be perfect, but I have a vision, and that vision keeps changing, and I think I'm on the cusp. I think I'm on the cusp of figuring out how I want to gather this information to help myself kind of process how things are going in my brain and how things are connected in my world. So that is a goal. And then I'm going to go back to 5 Things reviews. If you've been around me for a while, if you followed me on Goodreads for a long time or on Bookstagram for a long time, or if you've been with me on this channel for 5 years in 2025, 5 years, then you will know that I kind of go back and forth from year to year on writing 5 Things reviews. So this year was a year off. I didn't write up any review for Goodreads. I just did star ratings. And for Instagram, I just wrote whatever I wanted to, I just kind of verbally processed in short sentence, paragraph, and emoji form my experience with the books that I read. But this year I'll go back to a more intentional 5 Things review in which I state 5 solid evidence-based things about the book, and I will write those reviews up and post them on Goodreads as well as on Bookstagram and here also. But it's a 5 things a year. And then I have a couple of things that I want to focus on each month. I want to finish the Witch Hat Atelier series. So I'm on book 5. And I want to read 1 more installment in that each month. I don't know why I stopped. It's been 2 years. I loved that series. I might need to start over. I can reread or skim read the batch that I've already read, but I want to read 1 every month until I finish it. And then when I reach the point where I finish it, I want to start reading the Rose of Versailles series. I've read the first compendium twice and never gotten past that. So I want to actually own them, and I want the compendiums. I think there are 5 compendiums. I want to actually own them, and I want to read them, and I want to read each month until I'm done with that. So those are 2 manga series that I really, really enjoy. I also, when I started reading Witch Hat Atelier, I also started reading Spy Family. I don't want to continue with Spy Family. It is entertaining, but it's really not a story that I'm super engaged in. So I will borrow those from my school library if I feel the desire to read one. But I want to own Witch Hat Atelier and The Rose of Versailles, and I want to finish reading the whole thing. I know the Witch Hat Atelier isn't done, but I want to get to the point, the most current place in it, which I think is book 11 or installment 11, volume 11, and I'm on 5. So those are 2 goals. I also want to read a Madeleine L'Engle each month. I want to read a Catherine Center each month. I want to read a Brock and Brody Tony, I think that's how you say their last name, in a particular series each month. I want to read an Inspector Gamache book each month. And I want to read my pre-orders and my book of the month books within 2 months of arrival into my hands. So if I receive it on January 20th, I want to read it by March 20th. I want to participate in my own book group that I'm leading, Books Love Everyone. Be on the lookout. There's a video coming out soon about the first set of books that we're reading, as well as the opening of the Fable app. That's coming this weekend. So it's soon. It's very soon. And then also I want to participate in Book Mama's Elevate Your Reading Challenge. If you don't watch Book Mama on BookTube, you probably should. She's got a great reading challenge where she gives you prompt, and then she also has a buddy read option. And as I was watching her video, I was like, you know what? Like, I actually really want to read over half of her buddy read options. Like, I just already want to read them. Why not read them with this group of people? So I'm going to do that this year, and that's going to be super fun. I will also this year participate in Middle Grade March. I'm going to lead Mary Shelley May in May. I didn't do it in 2024, but I'm going to do it in 2025. Participate in Jane Austen July and Victober. So those are my plans. They're oddly specifically broad. And they'll guide my reading choices throughout the year. My January TBR is pretty heavy, but it's my heaviest one. I have some books set aside that I want to try and target and read each month, but unlike the last couple of years, I do not have, beyond January, I do not have huge, ambitious TBRs set up at this point. I'm playing with the idea. If you've been around for a long time, you may remember that I used to pick TBRs in the moment with you by playing a Jenga prompt game. I might even bring that back a few months in 2025. It's fun, and it helps me read the books that are on my shelves. But for the month of January, I think I have 23 or 25 books that I'd like to try to get to, and we're going to just share those things. So I don't know what my book of the month book will be. Those haven't been announced yet. I haven't ordered them yet, but they're coming. There will be a book of the month book. For Book Mama's Elevate Your Reading, the prompt is recent release. The buddy read that she's chosen is Isabel Ibanez's Where the Library Hides, which I own, and I am currently in December of 2024 reading What the River Knows. Is that what it's called? Yes, reading What the River Knows. I got these in December from Book of the Month. I got both of them. I was waiting to read the first one until the second one came out because I heard there's a huge cliffhanger at the end of the first one. So I will purposefully read that very slowly to finish up closer to the end of the month so that I don't have to wait too long to start this one in the buddy read with that group of readers. And I don't want to read what that's about because I'm reading the first one right now. So I'm just going to hold off on any information about that. Then for Books Love Everyone, our first month is Jane Eyre, and I can't find my physical copy. I know it's in this house somewhere. I will find it before January, but also Praying with Jane Eyre. I'm going to give a whole video. I'll find the book before I film that video, but I'm going to give a whole video introducing both of these books. So I'm not going to say anything about them now, but those are that's our pair of books that we're reading in January. You are free to read one or the other or both, and you're still able to fully participate. I'm going to read the fifth Witch Hat Atelier. I haven't ordered it yet, but I will. I'm going to read the fifth Witch Hat Atelier. I might just pick it up at Target. I'm doing a Target run this week for some Secret Santa stuff, which actually you may have already seen that video, but I'm going to do a video of getting some stuff for my Secret Santa person. And if it's there, they usually have them at Target. And if it's there, I'll just pick it up at Target when I do that. For my Madeline L'Engle this month, I'm going to start with a nonfiction. I'm going to start with Circle of Quiet. This is just a kind of quiet, meditative journal type book. And I'm going to love it and probably find all sorts of things for my commonplace book in there. For my Catherine Center, I'm going to read How to Walk Away. So I don't actually know what this is about, but let's find out. It says Margaret Jacobson is just about to step into the bright future she's worked so hard and so long for. A new dream job, a fiance she adores, and the promise of a picture-perfect life just around the corner. Then suddenly, on what should have been one of the happiest days of her life, everything she worked for is taken away in a brief, tumultuous moment. In the hospital, and forced to face the possibility that nothing will ever be the same again, Maggie must confront the unthinkable. First, there is her fiancé, Chip, who wallows in self-pity while simultaneously expecting to be forgiven. Then there's her sister, Kit, who shows up after pulling a 3-year vanishing act. Finally, there's Ian, her physical therapist, the one the nurses said was too tough for her. Ian, who won't let her give in to her pity and who sees her like no one has seen her before. Sometimes the last thing you want is the one thing you need. Sometimes we all need someone to catch us when we fall, and sometimes love can find us in the least likely place we would ever expect. So this sounds more hard-hitting, more serious than her more recent work. I haven't read things from her backlist. I started reading Catherine Center at The Bodyguard. I don't know anything before that. So this sounds a little bit more hard-hitting. I'm there for that. I will read anything this woman has written. And I am excited to read some of her backlist. So I'm starting there. The Brock and Brody I don't know how to say their last name, that I'm going to read this month is the Vienna Prelude. I have read this before when I was a much younger version of myself. When I was a teenager, I was obsessed with these books, the Zion Covenant books. And I want to read one of the books in this series a month for the year. There are many more than 12 books in this series, but I want to read 12 of them this year. The first one is about this, and I kind of remember it, but I kind of don't remember it. It says, "No one is safe. In 1936, Nazi darkness descends upon Europe. Every person is only one step away from being swept into the nightmarish tide of evil. Blonde Alyssa Lindheim, a violinist with the Vienna Philharmonic Orchestra, adopts an Aryan stage name for protection. But her closest friend, Leah, a talented Jewish cellist, is in a perilous position. There are those who choose to fight Hitler's madness, Elisa's father, Theo, a courageous American reporter, John Murphy, Winston Churchill, the British statesman, a farm family in the Tyrolean Alps, the Jewish underground. But will all their efforts be enough to stop the coming Holocaust? Well, no. We know what happens. And now Elisa must decide. If she becomes part of the underground, she will risk everything and put everyone she loves in danger." So what I kind of remember from reading this book was that, yes, I remembered that she was with the Philharmonic, and I think she has to evacuate 2 Jewish children. I think that's what happens. I don't really remember much, but I remember that. But that might happen in a different book in the series. I don't know. But I'm going to go ahead and revisit those. I only got the first book in the series because I don't know if I'm going to love it like I loved it when I was a teenager. I have a feeling I will, but we'll see. If I don't, I'll abandon that plan. I just won't continue reading. But I think that I am going to love them, and I can get them all for very cheap on Better World Books. So we'll see how it goes. I am going to read the first book in the Inspector Gamas series. I haven't read about this. This is the first time I'm reading this. It says, a picturesque village just north of the U.S. border. Oh, so this happens in Canada? I didn't know that. A place where neighbors greet each other, where visitors feel right at home, and where the truth hides behind closed doors. Enter the world of Three Pines and discover why Louise Penny is the blockbuster #1 New York Times best-selling author who has enthralled millions of readers. Well, I plan to. Thank you for the invitation. Jane Neal, well-loved in her community, does not appear to be a woman anyone would want to harm, let alone murder. But when she turns up dead with an arrow wound to her chest, Chief Inspector Armand Gamache can't help but think that Jane died at the hands of someone much more sinister than a careless hunter. Now it's up to Gamache to find a killer who's on the loose and on his trail. When it comes to murder, you have to see the forest for the trees. So, everybody loves this series. I am hopeful I will too. I want to read Path Lit by Lightning. This is a biography of Jim Thorpe. It says, Jim Thorpe, a Native American, may have been the greatest athlete the world has ever seen. He rose to fame as a mythic talent who excelled at every sport. He won gold medals in the decathlon and pentathlon at the 1912 Stockholm Olympics, was an All-American football player at the Carlisle Indian School, became the star of the first class of the Pro Football Hall of Fame, played Major League Baseball for John McGraw's New York Giants. Even in a golden age of sports celebrities, he was unique. But despite his colossal skills, Thorpe's life was a struggle against daunting odds. As a member of the Sac and Fox Nation, he encountered duplicitous authorities who turned away from him when their reputations were at risk. Among them, his Carlisle coach, Pop Warner, and U.S. Olympic official James E. Sullivan. At Carlisle, he dealt with the school's racist assimilationist philosophy, kill the Indian, save the man. His Olympic gold medals were unfairly rescinded because he had played minor league baseball, which both Warner and Sullivan knew. His later life was troubled by alcohol, broken marriages, and financial distress. He roamed from state to state trying to earn a living from his celebrity. He took bit parts in Hollywood, but even the film of his own life failed to improve his fortunes. Despite all his travails, Thorpe did not succumb. The man survived, complications and all, and so did the myth. Path Lit by Lightning is a great American story from a master biographer. So I am excited to read that. I'm going to read a book called Awe. I don't have a copy of it yet. This is called Awe, the New Science of Everyday Wonder. And it is also nonfiction. It says, from a foremost expert on the science of emotions, a groundbreaking and essential exploration in the history, science, and great understanding of awe. Awe is mysterious. How do we begin to quantify the goosebumps we feel when we see the Grand Canyon, or our utter amazement when we watch a child walk for the first time? Until recently, there was no science of awe, that feeling we experience when we encounter vast mysteries that transcend our understanding of the world. Revolutionary thinking, though, has shown how humans have survived over the course of evolution thanks to our capacities to cooperate, form communities, and create culture, all of which are spurred by awe. In Awe, Dr. Keltner presents a sweeping investigation and deeply personal inquiry into this elusive feeling, revealing new research alongside an examination of awe across history, culture, and within his own life. Keltner shows us how cultivating awe in our everyday lives leads us to appreciate what is most humane in our human nature. At turns radical and profound, brimming with enlightening and practical insights, Awe is our field guide for how to place this emotion as a vital force within our lives. So I'm looking forward to that quite a lot. I'm also going to read this nonfiction in the month of January. This is When Books Went to War, the stories that helped us win World War II. And this says, when America entered World War II in 1941, we faced an enemy that had banned and burned more than 100 million books and caused fearful citizens to hide or destroy many more. Outraged librarians launched a campaign to send free books to American troops and gathered 20 million hardcover donations, but something more was needed. Books that soldiers could carry in their pockets and rucksacks, on bombing runs and aboard ships, in every theater of a war that was waged around the globe. In 1943, the War Department and the publishing industry stepped in with an extraordinary program. 120 million small, lightweight paperbacks, extremely inexpensive and covering every conceivable subject and genre of interest to millions of servicemen. Comprising 1,200 different titles, these paperbacks were beloved by troops and are still fondly remembered today. Soldiers read them while waiting to land at Normandy, in hellish trenches in the midst of battles in the Pacific, and field hospitals. They wrote to the authors, many of whom responded to every letter. They helped rescue The Great Gatsby from obscurity. They made Betty Smith, author of A Tree Grows in Brooklyn, into a national icon. When Books Went to War is an inspiring story for history buffs and book lovers alike. So, When Books Went to War by Molly Guptill Manning. I am also going to read, but I don't have a copy of it yet, When the Day Comes by Gabrielle Meyer. first in a series. It's a time travel or time slip series. Heard a lot of booktubers talking about it, and I'm finally giving in. There are 5 books in this series. That's crazy. Okay, that's crazy because I think the first time I heard about this, there was only the one. So how will she choose, knowing all that she must sacrifice? Libby has been given a powerful gift to live one life in 1774, colonial Williamsburg, and the other in 1914 Gilded Age New York City. When she falls asleep in one life, she wakes up in the other. While she's the same person at her core in both times, she's leading 2 vastly different lives. In colonial Williamsburg, Libby is a public printer for the House of Burgess and the royal governor, trying to provide for her family and support the patriot cause. The man she loves, Henry Montgomery, has his own secrets. As the revolution draws near, both their lives and any hope of love are put in jeopardy. Libby's life in 1914 New York is filled with wealth, drawing room conversations, and bachelors. But the only work she cares about, women's suffrage, is discouraged, and her mother is intent on marrying her off to an English marquess. The growing talk of war in Europe only complicates matters, but Libby knows she's not destined to live 2 lives forever. On her 21st birthday, she must choose one path and forfeit the other. But how can she choose when she has so much to lose in each life? That is a fascinating premise for a story. How do you choose? For 21 years, you've lived both lives. How do you give one up completely after 21 years? Fascinating. Your family, everything. You give it all up. Fascinating. I also plan on reading Daughter of the Moon Goddess. Again, I don't have a copy of it yet, but I will have one. When I say I will have one, I'm getting these from the library, and they're not in yet, but they will be for January. Daughter of the Moon Goddess. Again, finally just giving into hype. I've heard about this book for a while, and finally just given into it. This one says, growing up on the moon, Xingyan is accustomed to solitude, unaware that she is being hidden from the feared celestial emperor who exiled her mother for stealing his elixir of immortality. But when Xingyan's magic flares and her existence is discovered, she is forced to flee her home, leaving her mother behind. Alone, powerless, and afraid, she makes her way to the Celestial Kingdom, a land of wonder and secrets. Disguising her identity, she seizes an opportunity to learn alongside the Emperor's son, mastering archery and magic, even as passion flames between her and the prince. To save her mother, Xingyan embarks on a perilous quest, confronting legendary creatures and vicious enemies. But when treachery looms and forbidden magic threatens the kingdom, she must challenge the ruthless Celestial Emperor for her dream, striking a dangerous bargain in which she is torn between losing all she loves or plunging the realm into chaos. High stakes. So some of these I'm getting from the library. I really want to read them, but I don't want to buy them until I know that I love them. And so when I say, except for with Witch Hat Atelier, which I just haven't picked up yet, when I say I'm going to read these, but I don't have them yet, it's because they're coming to me from the library. I also have The Lovely War by Julia Barry. This one says, it is a sweeping, multi-layered romance set in the perilous days of World Wars I and II, where gods hold the fates in the hearts of 4 mortals in their hands. I picked this up because it reminds me so much of Divine Rivals and Ruthless Gods, which I loved reading this year. Ruthless Gods less than Divine Rivals, but I loved Divine Rivals so much. In fact, I just got my sister to buy it and to read it. So this sounds a lot like that. I'm hoping that it will be different, but give me some of the same vibes. It says they are Hazel, James, Aubrey, and Colette. A classical pianist from London, a British would-be architect turned soldier, a Harlem-born ragtime genius in the U.S. Army, and a Belgian orphan with a gorgeous voice and a devastating past. Their story, as told by goddess Aphrodite, who must spin the tale or face judgment on Mount Olympus, is filled with hope and heartbreak, prejudice and passion, and reveals that, though war is a formidable force, it is no match for the transcendent power of love. So it's going to be different, but a little bit the same. I'm excited. I'm excited to give this a try. I hope I love it. I believe it is a standalone, which I also am excited about. I want to read a little Regency romance. I'm going to read A Lady's Guide to Scandal by Sophie Irwin. I have read Lady's Guide to Fortune Hunting. That was one that was recommended to me in a librarian versus librarian battle, which I also will do again this year. I do it every year. I didn't put it on my list of things I'm doing. I don't know why. I'll add it to my list. I will definitely do that, probably in the summertime. But that aside, I read the first book because of a librarian versus librarian recommendation. I didn't love it, but I hear that this one is better, and I want more. Having just finished the Mimi Matthews Bells of London and knowing there's not going to be another one coming out to look forward to, I'm looking for more historical romance. I think this is sillier than the Mimi Matthews, but I think I'll still enjoy it. It says, when shy Miss Eliza Balfour married the austere Earl of Somerset, 20 years her senior, it was the match of the season, no matter that he was not the husband Eliza wanted. Now, 10 years later, Eliza is widowed. Suddenly, she is left titled, rich, and for the first time in her life, utterly in control of her own future. She has always lived by society's conventions, but now Eliza has resolved to do as she wants. And what she wants is to head to Bath with her cousin Margaret, pursuing painting, learning to drive, and flirting with Bath's most alluring new resident, the infamous Lord Melville. And that's as far as I want to read. I don't want to read anymore. There's more, but I don't want to read anymore. I like the premise. Next, I want to start this series. This is Pride, Prejudice, and Other Flavors by Sonali Dev. This one says, you probably know about this one, but I'll read it anyway. This one says, it is a truth universally acknowledged that only in an overachieving Indian American family can a genius daughter be considered a black sheep. Dr. Tricia Rajay is San Francisco's most acclaimed neurosurgeon, but that's not enough for the Rajays. Her influential immigrant family who have achieved power by making their own non-negotiable rules. Never trust an outsider, never do anything to jeopardize your brother's political aspirations, and never, ever defy your family. Tricia is guilty of breaking all three, but now she has a chance to redeem herself, so long as she doesn't repeat her old mistakes. Up-and-coming chef DJ Kane has known people like Tricia before, people who judge him by his rough beginnings and who place pedigree above character. He needs the lucrative job that they offer him, but he values his pride too much to indulge Tricia's arrogance. And then he discovers that she's the only surgeon who can save his sister's life. As the two clash, their assumptions crumble like the spun sugar on one of DJ's stunning desserts. But before they can save the future, they need to reckon with the past. So obviously, this is a retelling of Pride and Prejudice. Very excited to enjoy that. I'm also going to try to read some pre-orders, including the Rainfall Market, which says, on the outskirts of Rainbow Town, there is an old abandoned house. They say that if you send a letter detailing your misfortunes there, you could receive a ticket. If you bring this ticket to the house on the first day of the rainy season, you will be granted entrance into the mysterious Rainfall Market, where you can choose to completely change your life. No one is more surprised than Saren when she receives a ticket. Lonely and with no real prospect for a future, Saren ventures to the market, determined to create a better life for herself. There she meets a magical cat companion named Isha, and they search through bookstores, perfumeries, and fantastical realms while Saren tries to determine what her perfect life will look like. The catch? She has only 1 week to find her happiness or be doomed to vanish into the market forever. And all the while, a shadow quietly follows behind them. You can see why I pre-ordered. Yeah, you can see. And then I also have pre-ordered Where the Heart Should Be by Sarah Crossan. This one says, in 1847, everything in Ireland is falling apart, but 16-year-old Nell was falling in love. Ireland is starving, and a poor Irish scullery maid falls in love with a British heir to the land. Can their romance stay hidden during the devastating famine? The potatoes are black, people are dying, and in the midst of it all, Nell must do everything she can to keep her family together and everyone she loves alive. It is hard to tell a love story and also the story of a people being torn apart. I have also pre-ordered Indigo Alys. I haven't read about this. I just pre-ordered this because I love this author. The author is Laura France, and everything I've read by this author I have loved. She writes historical Christian romance, but she is an excellent writer, and her history is so well researched, and she develops these amazing jump off the page characters. I just really have loved everything I've read by her. It says, in 1774, Juliet Catesby lives with her father and sister at Royal Vale, the James River plantation founded by her Virginia family over a century before. Indigo cultivation is her foremost concern, though its export tethers her family to the powerful Buchanan clan of Glasgow, Scotland. When the heir of the Buchanan firm arrives on their shores, Juliet discovers that her father has arranged for one of his daughters to marry the Scot as a means of canceling the family's crippling debt. Confident it will be her younger, lovelier sister, Juliet is appalled when Lath Buchanan selects her instead. Despite her initial refusal, Juliet realizes that fleeing Virginia is her only choice after finding herself in the midst of a scandal. The ship, just leaving the harbor for Glasgow, is her only hope. But she will soon realize that being part of the complex and calculating Buchanan clan is not the sanctuary that she imagined, and the man who saved her from ruin is the very one that she must now save in return. I love, again, everything that I have read by this author, so I am just really 100% looking forward to this book. I have also pre-ordered The Stolen Queen by Fiona Davis. I haven't read about this one yet either. I'm going to read about it for the first time with you. Love Fiona Davis. She always has the same kind of thing. She's got a historical timeline and a modern timeline. It takes place in New York, and it's about some building or structure in New York. So let's find out. Egypt, 1936. When anthropology student Charlotte Cross is offered a coveted spot on an archaeological dig in Egypt's Valley of the Kings, she leaps at the opportunity. That is, until an unbearable tragedy strikes. New York, 1978. 19-year-old Annie Jenkins is thrilled when she lands an opportunity to work for former Vogue fashion editor Diana Vreeland, who's in the midst of organizing the famous Met Gala hosted at the museum and known across the city as the Party of the Year. Meanwhile, Charlotte is now leading a quiet life as the associate curator of the Met's celebrated Department of Egyptian Art. She's consumed by her research on Hathor Kare, a rare female pharaoh dismissed by other... Is that just Hathor? Hathor Kare? Is that the same person? A rare female pharaoh dismissed by most other Egyptologists as unimportant. The night of the gala, one of the Egyptian art collector's most valuable artifacts goes missing, and there are signs Hathor Kare's legendary curse might be reawakening. Annie and Charlotte team up to search for the missing antiquity, and a desperate hunch leads the unlikely duo to the one place Charlotte swore she would never return, Egypt. But if they have any hope of finding the artifact, Charlotte will need to confront the demons of her past, which may mean leading them both directly into danger. Yeah, I'm going to love this. Also, 2 Egypt books. I rarely read anything about Egypt. It is not a draw for me at all. And I've got 2 Egypt books in January. Fascinating. Okay. I also have Rosarita by Anita Desai. In my birthday book haul, I give a very, not wonderful description of this book, but I'll read you what it's about. Anita Desai has connections to the school that I worked at in India, so I've walked where she's walked. I've slept where she's slept. I feel like we have a connection. She doesn't know who I am at all, but I feel like I know who she is, and so I really enjoy reading her books. I've read quite a few of them, and I'm excited about this one. I don't usually pre-order them, but I pre-ordered this one. I know I like her writing, and I really like the sound of this story. So it says, away from her home in India to study Spanish, Bonita sits on a bench in El Jardín de San Miguel, Mexico, basking in the park's lush beauty, when she slowly becomes aware that she is being watched. An elderly woman approaches her, claiming that she knew Bonita's mother, that they had been friends when Bonita's mother had lived in Mexico as a talented young artist. Bonita tells the stranger that she must be mistaken. Her mother was not a painter and never traveled to Mexico. Though the stranger leaves, Bonita cannot shake the feeling that she is being followed. Days later, haunted by the encounter, Bonita seeks out the woman whom she calls the trickster and follows her on a tour of what may or may not have been her mother's past. As a series of mysterious events brilliantly unfold, Bonita is unable to escape the trickster's presence, as she is forced to confront questions of truth and identity and specters of familial and national violence. A masterpiece of storytelling from a gifted writer, Rosarita is a profound meditation on mothers, marriage, art, and self-expression, and how the traumas from the past can impact future generations. Sounds awesome. I also pre-ordered Witchcraft for Wayward Girls. This is Grady Hendrix. I have not yet read about this one either. Just an author I know I love. This one says, they call them wayward girls, loose girls, girls who grew up too fast. And they're sent to Wellwood House in St. Augustine, Florida, where unwed mothers are hidden by their families to have their babies in secret, to give them up for adoption, and most important of all, to forget that any of it ever happened. 15-year-old Fern arrives at the home in the sweltering summer of 1970, pregnant, terrified, and alone. Under the watchful eye of the stern Ms. Wellwood, she meets dozens of other girls in the same predicament. There's Rose, a hippie who insists she's going to find a way to keep her baby and escape to a commune, and Zinnia, a budding musician who plans on marrying her baby's father, and Holly, a wisp of a girl barely 14, mute and pregnant by no one knows who. Everything the girls eat, every moment of their waking day, and everything they're allowed to talk about is strictly controlled by adults who claim they know what's best for them. Then Fern meets a librarian who gives her an occult book about witchcraft. And power is in the hands of the girls for the first time in their lives. But power can destroy as easily as it creates, and it's never given freely. There's always a price to be paid, and it's usually paid in blood. In Witchcraft for Wayward Girls, the author of How to Sell a Haunted House and the Final Girls Support Group delivers another searing, completely original novel and further cements his status as a horror master. NPR. Yeah. I love the way Grady Hendrix writes horror. There is purpose to his horror, and I just really, really, really love it. I loved How to Sell a Haunted House. I loved the Vampire Book Group one. I loved Horror Store. I just really, really like Grady Hendrix and how he tells a story. So yes. And I've read, I can't remember what it's called, but I've read his history of horror. He has a nonfiction history of horror, and that was really great too. Horror movies, particularly. Love it. I have also pre-ordered a book called The Capital of Dreams by Heather O'Neill. And this is like a dark fairy tale. It's going to be literary fiction, but it's a little bit horror, a little bit fairy tale. It says that Sophia Bottom lives in Elysia, a small country forgotten by Europe. But inside its borders, the old myths of trees that come alive and fairies who live among their roots have given way to an explosion of the arts and the consolations of philosophy. There's going to be a war that breaks out. Her mother is an artist, and she can't live up to her mother's expectations or standards. When the war breaks out, she is evacuated with a notebook of her mother's work, I guess, or something important. She loses that, and she ends up lost in a forest, and she has to try to survive. She keeps running into soldiers, survivors, lost children, and she has to somehow survive. So it says that it's a dark fairy tale, and I am looking forward to reading that one. I also plan on reading the first book in the Maisy Dobbs series. This says, Maisy Dobbs got her start as a maid in an aristocratic London household when she was 13. Her employer, suffragette Lady Rowan Compton, soon became her patron, taking the remarkably bright youngster under her wing. Lady Rowan's friend, Maurice Blanche, often retained as an investigator by the European elite, recognized Maisy's intuitive gifts and helped her earn admission to the prestigious Girton College in Cambridge, where Maisy planned to complete her education. The outbreak of war changed everything. Maisy trained as a nurse, then left for France to serve at the front, where she found and lost an important part of herself. 10 years after the armistice in the spring of 1929, Maisy sets out on her own as a private investigator, one who has learned that coincidences are meaningful and truth elusive. Her very first case involves suspected infidelity, but reveals something different. In the aftermath of the Great War, a former officer has founded a working farm known as the Retreat that acts as a convalescent refuge for ex-soldiers too shattered to resume normal life. When fate brings Maisy a second case involving the Retreat, she must finally confront the ghost that has haunted her for over a decade. I think I'm going to love this series. I think I'm going to love that series. I am also going to read the second book. It still has all its library stuff on it, but I'm going to read the second book in, I don't know what this series is called. I read the first book in November by Philippa Gregory. Okay, it's the Fair Mile series. The Fair Mile series. I don't know what the second book is about. The first book was about a Catholic priest, King Charles, and a woman living in the Tidelands. And she gets accused of being a witch. I know how that book ends. I'm going to peek at what this is about and see if I can even tell you. I don't know how closely related each of these books is. Oh, I can't read you what this is about, but I'm really excited to read it now. It is a very closely related. This is beautiful. This is beautiful on the inside here. It is a very closely related to the first one. It's such a beautiful map. It's very closely related to the first one, and I can't tell you what it's about, but I'm so excited to read this. So excited to read this. I am also going to listen to and get from the library. I don't know if I'm going to love it or if I'm going to have a hard time with it, but I'm going to get the second book in the ACOTAR series. So I've got A Court of Mist and Fury. I was able to purchase all of the audio, there's two different kinds of audio. There's just the audiobook, and then there's the acted out version, and that comes in two different pieces. I got just the audiobook version for $2.75 from Audible during the Black Friday sale. All of them were $2.75. So I just grabbed them all. So I can at least listen to the series, and I'm going to get the books from the library unless I'm really, really like loving them. I did just, if you watched my mid-month wrap-up, you'll know that I did just successfully finish reading. Took 4 tries, but I successfully finished reading the first book in the series and actually really enjoyed it on this fourth try. I don't know how I'm going to respond to A Court of Mist and Fury. I don't want to spend money on it until I know that I'm going to like it. So I have the audio. I'm going to get the physical from the library, but it's a long hold. And we'll see. We'll see how it goes. But I do plan on reading A Court of Mist and Fury. This is the second book in the series. I don't want to read about it. I want to be surprised. And I have somewhere, but I don't know where. I know I have this. It's somewhere in my house. I just need to find it. But I am going to read Marmee. This is by Sarah Miller. So it says, in 1861, war is raging in the South, but in Concord, Massachusetts, Margaret March has her own battles to fight. With her husband serving as an army chaplain, the comfort and security of Margaret's 4 daughters, Meg, Jo, Beth, and Amy, now rest on her shoulders alone. Money is tight, and every month her husband sends less and less of his salary with no explanation. Worst of all, Margaret harbors the secret that these financial hardships are largely her fault, thanks to a disastrous mistake she made over a decade ago, which wiped out her family's fortunes and snatched away her daughters' chance for the education they deserve. Yet, even with all that weighs upon her, Margaret longs to do more for the war effort, for the poor, for the cause of abolition, and most of all for her daughters. Living by her watchwords, hope and keep busy, she fills her days with humdrum charity work to keep her worries at bay. All of that is interrupted when Margaret receives a telegram from the War Department summoning her to her husband's bedside in Washington, D.C. While she is away, her daughter Beth falls dangerously ill, forcing Margaret to confront the possibility that the price of her own generosity towards others may be her daughter's life. A stunning portrait of the paragon of virtue known as Marmee, a wife left behind, a mother pushed to the brink, a woman with secrets. I'm very excited to read that. And I do already own it. It's somewhere here. I got it in last year's birthday book haul. So it's somewhere in this house. I just can't seem to locate it. I that is what I plan to read in the month of January. I may or may not get to all of these. I don't know what reading will feel like in January, but I do have quite a few days off. There's part of winter break in there. There's a couple of national holidays in there, and our school also has a couple of days off in there. And January is a cold and rainy and gross month where I live, and so a lot of time is spent indoors. And I think that, I think I probably can read all of these books. They're also really story heavy. Even the nonfiction that I'm choosing to read has a lot of story to it. So I think it's going to be a great reading month. I'm really looking forward to every single one of these books. I know I say that every time, but I'm really looking forward to every single one of these books. Every year, I think so hard and carefully about what I want to read in January and how the books complement each other, and complement what I'm doing in my life during that time, and I'm so concerned about setting the tone for the year, that my January TBRs are always just so spectacularly right for me. January is traditionally always just a really good reading month for me. And I'm really looking forward to every single one of these books. Every single one. I kind of want to start reading them all right now, but I won't. Until I see you tomorrow, let's go read.